Well, I always loved the sport that I'm working in primarily, which is horse racing. That's the one that I immediately had an affinity with since I was a child. So I wanted to work in that sport, and actually I got a bit lucky because I used my contacts through my parents to get me an interview with a PR company that specialised in horse racing, and this is like back in the mid-90s, a very long time ago. And you do have to use contacts as much as possible to get the opportunity. And that's what I did. But started off with this PR company, and it specialised in horse racing, and you knew that you'd meet more people through it, and the contact base grows wider and wider. And actually, the chairman of that company was the person who wrote off to the original At the Races that was starting up in 2002 and recommended me for a screen test. So again, bit of luck, but being in the right place at the right time certainly helped. But the most important thing for me was that because it was a specialist subject and something that I really liked and I worked hard at, but I followed intently. I was prepared for the opportunity when it came up. Perhaps I didn't realise at the time that I was prepared, but because I'd immersed myself in it, when the opportunity came to be tested on it, tested on the sport, not actually sure about what it was like in front of a camera, but I knew that I had the base of knowledge within the sport that I was going to try and make a breakthrough in, and that was the most important thing. When I was like a kid growing up, just like most people, I think, who like sports, the thing you want to do is keep the enjoyment lasting for as long as possible. And for me, horse racing, cricket, golf, tennis, whatever sports that I followed as a kid, I just wanted to be able to enjoy it for as much as possible. And yes, I did dabble in a professional career doing law like my father did. But actually, my father quite was very encouraging to me and said, "Oh, well, if you really want to do something that isn't professional, then pursue it." And so in the end, the reason why I'm doing what I do today is because I feel like I am not actually working. I feel like what I'm doing is just a joy, really. It'd be like if you had time off from your daily job, your 9 to 5 grind, what would you do? Well, some guys it'd be going to play golf, some guys it might just be going out for a few drinks with mates, sitting at home watching television. It's basically doing that every day as a career. And I take my hat off to people who get up every morning, do the same thing. They go through the grind of, whether you're a nurse or a doctor or you're a teacher or whatever industry you work in, you do the same thing every day. That's amazing, because I couldn't do that. What I feel I'm doing is doing the leisure activities over and over again, which I enjoy. And so I want to keep on pursuing that for as long as possible because it keeps a smile on my face. It's difficult to single out an achievement because I think for television presenters or reporters or broadcasters in general, I think I think our jobs sometimes get a bit overblown. In all seriousness, all we're doing is we're telling other people how brilliant other people are. So I don't think we should take any credit for that. That's not really something to be trumpeted. So what I enjoy most is the fact that I have been able to go to some great events, work on great events, from being involved to the Olympics, working on the Masters or the Ryder Cup. I remember my first Ryder Cup in Medina, being able to attend those. I think those being good at considered good enough by whether it be the BBC or Channel 4 or whoever I've worked for in the past, when they consider you good enough to work on those major events, that for me is an achievement. So the fact that I was considered good enough to work on the Olympics, I've worked on 3 Olympics, Athens, Beijing and London. Being able to work at the Masters, being asked to work at the Masters, being asked to work on the Ryder Cup, those are achievements in my eyes, because obviously I started off in the sport of horse racing and I was able to expand, do other things, and so I feel like the fact that I was able to branch out into other things despite they weren't my specialties, that means for me that's an achievement. As for senior management, trying to create an environment, to be honest, I think the way that things have progressed over the last few years, senior management discussion with the talent and with production staff, in my world, discussion and communication is the most important thing. Because when I first started to now, the times where things have been difficult is when there's no communication between production, senior management, and the talents. And that's when you have trouble. That's when you find things either becoming a bit stale, you either find things becoming, the wrongs are not being righted, and what happens in situations like that is things get worse, decay, without you realising, because you just do the same things. It's really important to have continuous dialogue between senior management and anybody else, really. Everybody else in the team, they've got to keep talking. And it's senior management's role to really drive that. It's their role, because they're the ones who've got to follow up everything. Whether they do it by delegating to other people, then fine, but it's their responsibility to continuously get feedback from everybody, to keep the programs that we do getting better and better, and keep fixing things that might go wrong, to keep improving things, and keep the things that we're doing well, keep them up to a high standard. That's a very good question, and one that I'm having to rack my brain hard about. I think to the people that I look up to, and the people that I have done, I think the thing that makes them stand out is their attention to detail, and that they won't be satisfied with a bit where that'll do. That phrase does not enter their head, that'll do. Is that the best we can do, is the question they ask themselves. The people that I look up to, and I think that when they produce something, whether it be something on television, radio, whatever, or even something written, the guys that I work with who I think are the best are the ones who make every pixel, every frame, every little bit as good as it can possibly be. Attention to detail is hugely important. Well, I suppose the person who I owe quite a lot to, and I suppose originally with my father, because he was the one who, when I was a child, took me horse racing. He took me cricket. He really fostered my love of sport. So I owe him quite a lot. And basically everything I did, I used to chat to him about. Whenever I went off to work at whatever event, I would phone him up whilst I was away, and we would talk on the phone, and I'd say, I've seen so and so, I've chatted to this person, I've done this, and he would always have criticism whenever he watched me. Sadly, my dad passed away a few years ago, and I do miss that. And I have a few other people who have helped me along the way, but my dad would be the number one. There's a guy called Jim Ramsey who's done a lot in television, and he would be another one who, from the early days, he actually gave me my first screen test on the races back in 2002, and we're still very, very, probably as good a friend as I've got at the moment. And he would be one of the people who I would look up to in terms of quality. I've never known anyone more dedicated to producing everything as good as it can be, and he's someone that I feel that I owe a lot to, and someone that has inspired me to try and achieve that sort of success.